Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
Hey everyone, I'm Oz Merchant. I am based in the Raleigh-Durham market of North Carolina.
And what do you do?
And so as of present, I'm starting a new startup called Futureproof, basically, which is a AI CFO for startups, both e-commerce and SaaS companies, specifically focusing on them.
So I'm just curious about your background. Like, how did this kind of come about? Like, what did you do before in your career?
Well, startups has been the career for the last 20 some years now. Chapter one was a little bit more kind of retail, wholesale, manufacturing. Then kind of the next act has been pretty much all around tech focus. So whether it was startups and then getting into more e-commerce again, so looking at kind of that world of commerce again from the more digital side of things, and really the startup landscape. This back in the ASP days. So before anybody talked about it as cloud, even SaaS really was just ASP days. So from that day on, kind of up until now, it's always been cloud related, software focused. Had a brief stint in hardware at some earlier years, but there's no margins in hardware. Software is where the real margins and growth is. So that's where the focus has been.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm curious if you can share with our audience more about with your current startup, like how it works, how you're helping your customers, like what's like the idea behind it.
Yeah, the focus has been, so having worked with a lot of different startups, in addition to kind of having startups and being part of the founding teams, has been helping a lot of other startups. So I run an accelerator program as well called Founder Institute, it's now, I think, in 200 cities around the world, 7,500 alum. So I run the North Carolina chapter of that. So we'll have about a dozen companies that go through each cohort. And the idea is really from it's the world's largest pre-seed accelerator. So it goes from idea all the way to potentially MVP. Some may be further along and they may actually have something they're taking to market and looking for fundraising. So working with a lot of those companies, as well as just kind of helping other companies in the startup community for a number of years. One of the things I saw as a repeated pattern, and that's both on the SaaS side of things and having worked with a lot of e-commerce brands, that people just don't know their numbers. And knowing their numbers is really the lifeblood of making your business successful, or at least having a chance to be successful, at least stacking the deck in your favor, to know, what your current burn rate is, how much runway you have left. Any of those types of information really helps to say, what can I do right now? What can I do in 3 months from now, 6 months from now? If I was doing e-commerce, can I launch 3 variations of a particular product? Does my cash flow support it? Do my current arrangements with my vendors support that type of cash flow to launch that many variations? If I'm doing, focus on SaaS, then do I have enough runway to hire, say, 2 more salespeople, another engineer? And if so, can I do that now? Can I do it in 3 months from now, 6 months from now? If I were to close this deal next month instead of 6 months from now, what's that to do to my cash flow situation as well? So all that stuff that hopefully people are staying on top of. If they're not, then they're in really big trouble. If they are, it's still a very crude way of doing it. Usually it's spreadsheets. It's, taking a cell or taking a sheet, making a copy of it, doing a scenario planning around it to say, okay, well, if I close this deal, next month instead of 3 to 6 months from now, what's that do? And I build out the next sheet with those variations and see what happens in my cash situation. It's just a lot of work. And if you're off anywhere in it, then your whole data set's off and you're going to make a mistake. If you're not staying on top of it with new stuff that's happened, then you have outdated information. So for us to sit there and ingest all that information directly from all the different sources makes it just a lot easier for founders. So they're no longer having to manually input all that data in. We're taking all of that, and then we have the AI sitting on top of it, basically behaving like your CFO. So the whole idea is, until you're ready to have a full-time CFO, let our platform be that function.
Makes sense. So essentially, it's like a fractional CFO service for e-commerce or SaaS founders to kind of help them monitor cash flow from end to end until they're like scaled up to a certain level where it makes sense to bring in a full-time CFO in-house.
Correct. The only difference is the fractional part is not a human, it's all the AI.
Got it. So how does that work? Like, I mean, obviously, like with AI, right, there's, I'm sure, different tiers within your platform. So like, how does that work? in terms of like price structure? Is it based on usage? Like, what does that look like for somebody who is interested in using the platform?
Yeah, so we've got basically two kind of tiered models. One is just the automated bookkeeping. So since you don't need a QuickBooks, you don't need a bookkeeper essentially. The platform is doing all your books, so we're ingesting all the information straight from your credit cards, your banks, and such, and then the AI does the reconciliation, and that does probably about 92% accuracy. So you kind of go in, take a look at it, make a few adjustments because we're not going to always know the intent of, say, a meal you had. Was that intent because you're traveling, which is probably the most likely the case? Or was it because you had a business meeting with a potential client? So those type of nuances you'll just kind of have to adjust for. But over time, it's also learning. So in addition to that, so that's one kind of particular tiered price. And then the other one is really the full AI CFO. So we're ingesting not only all the bank and credit card data, but we're also ingesting your CRM, your HRIS, your revenue and stuff through like Stripe. When we launch the e-commerce stuff, we'll be ingesting it all from Shopify and Amazon as well. So all of that comes in, and then the AI is sitting on top of that. So it knows kind of what your current pipeline is, what deals, what's in, what's coming, how many headcounts you have. So looking at all that data to say, okay, the idea is basically anything a CFO would need to make it help you kind of advise you as a founder. That's we want to ingest that in and let the AI run on top of that.
Well, that sounds fascinating. I think that's something that after this call, we should definitely have a conversation because it sounds super interesting. And I think for us, it's one of those things that I can speak firsthand. Sometimes the hire of like even a fractional CFO can be kind of cost prohibitive. So like in terms of like just like from the software side, what does that look like in terms of like pricing tiers? Do you have like different tiers? Yeah, if you can just share more about that in terms of cost.
Sure. So the basic tier is $100 a month.
Okay.
The next tier is $200 a month plus a percentage of revenue under management. It essentially just kind of scales up with you.
Okay,
so
cool.
The bigger you are, the more complexity you have in the business, the more you're probably using the AI because it's analyzing a lot of different data points. Over time, we'll also add an ability to bring in market data, competitive data, and even potentially your own platform, hooking that data into the platform and using that as just another data point, if that helps to make better business decisions.
No, for sure. And I guess like obviously like that you mentioned earlier in terms of, e-commerce or SaaS, things like that. What about for services? I'm curious, guys, like, we're in the services space. So what does that look like for other industries?
The focus has been on SaaS and e-commerce because they're tech heavy. So, and since we're ingesting all that information straight from your Stripe, Brex, Ramp, credit cards, the HRS and CRM stuff. So, a lot of systems that are already technology focused, and then all the KPIs we're building on top of it are just for those two specific kind of verticals. So if you're a SaaS company, then immediately we know that, okay, your SaaS is going to build out all the KPIs for SaaS. It's going to build out the chart of accounts specifically for a SaaS company, factor in kind of the deferred revenue, automatically move the money every month so that you're recognizing that revenue. E-commerce, totally different math schema, different KPIs. So we'll build out kind of the e-commerce chart of accounts as well as the different KPIs for that. So down the road, could we expand to other stuff? Yeah, but I think SaaS and e-commerce will keep us pretty busy for a good number of years.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, exactly. Like for services, it starts to get much more complex because sometimes you have more one-off things, you have different modes of payment, it just, definitely makes it much more complex. So in terms of like going to market, obviously you're competing with, fractional human CFOs that are more costly. So how do you kind of like go, when you're going to market and saying, hey, listen, like we have this software, it's more cost effective. How do you kind of handle those like objections that people have saying, listen, I need a human, I need somebody in the weeds with me, as opposed to like an AI software?
Yeah, so what's interesting is our focus, our kind of target market is anywhere from the day you get incorporated, because essentially the meter starts running the moment you get incorporated. You have kind of tax liabilities, so you want to start tracking all your expenses till probably about like 10 million mark. So what's been interesting is some of our best partners are actually fractional CFOs. So for a fractional CFO, if you're doing less than 2 million, you're not a really good fit for them anyway. So we're actually getting fractional CFOs sending us all the people they end up saying no to. So they're like, here, go work with these guys. They can automate a lot of that. Because what happens typically when you go first to your first fractional CFO, they're spending the first bit of time just cleaning up your books. This way, they're coming, as you scale up, you grow, you're ready for a fractional CFO. You can really just go from our platform. We're going to have a whole network of fractional CFOs that have been already vetted, that know our platform as well. You can go see them. You can bring in human person into that conversation, but also end up having a lot more strategic conversation now because you can trust the app to do kind of a lot of the labor part, labor intensive side of the work.
Makes sense. So you're saying that like for a fractional CFO, they could sell this as like a lower ticket offer, meaning that like if they're on a call with someone, they have like a prospect that can't afford their service, they could sell it as that as well.
Exactly. And the other thing we're not touching is we're not doing taxes. We're not doing sales tax. We're not doing annual kind of corporate tax. We're not doing R&D tax credits and such. So we'll have a partner network for all of that to connect folks to.
Makes sense. So I guess like what has been your best go-to-market strategy? Has it been like these partnerships with fractional CFOs? Have you done conferences, ads, cold outreach? Like what does that kind of look like for you?
So far, no ads, no kind of cold outreach. It's just been through either accelerator programs, through co-working spaces, through these partnerships, and VCs. So almost every VC we talk to is like, oh, wait, how do I get this in front of my portfolio? Because they could all use that help. So early stage VCs is a huge fit for us.
And then I guess in terms of like, e-commerce or SaaS integration, you kind of touched on it like a bit, right? So what does that look like? Do you integrate with Shopify, Stripe, WooCommerce? Like what does that look like for the integration side of things?
So we will get to doing the e-commerce side. We started with the SaaS side first, and that we integrate with Stripe, HubSpot already, Bamboo HR, and all the different banks, credit cards, and such. And we're building out the Brex and Ramp integrations as well too. Then we'll do Shopify, and then Amazon's a bigger ecosystem to tackle, and then there's other kind of integration. So even their data, it's you have to kind of massage that. So there's other people that sit in between that will probably integrate with that have already cleansed some of that data. So
makes sense.
Then we'll bring that in. So the Shopify is much easier.
So from the Shopify side, you envision having like a Shopify app in the App Store where people can just download and add it to their. Okay, that's all. Yeah, I mean, this is gonna crush it for sure. I mean, I think you're solving a massive problem because it's the cool thing is, I think, especially at your price point, people who are literally just getting started and they might not have the cash flow to hire somebody fractional. They may say, listen, let me just download this app and use it on my store. And I think that's super awesome.
Correct. And we want to keep the barrier to entry low and solve a key pain point because, I've seen people that have been doing e-commerce for 3 or 4 years. They start talking about an exit. And this one seller was like still using TurboTax, didn't have any books in order, didn't have anything like that, but it's already thinking exit, doing $4 million a year, but has no book management at all. So it's like to do an exit, that means somebody's going to have to come in, clean up a lot of stuff before you can actually have an exit. So it's like, it doesn't have to be that difficult because most of these things, like if you look at QuickBooks and such, they're not made for founders. They're made for accountants and bookkeepers. So our whole focus is we don't sell to finance, we sell to founders. So the whole platform is kind of founder finance, founder friendly, easy to consume. So you're not trying to figure out, because that's why we only focus on those 2 verticals. You don't have to go figure out how to build out a chart of accounts. The system knows if you selected SaaS, it's going to build it out for you as a SaaS business. If you selected e-commerce, it'll build it out for e-commerce.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, 100%. And so in terms of like what you're kind of focused on, obviously like you mentioned the Shopify integration, I guess when could our listeners who many are in the e-commerce space expect to see that?
Probably 3 to 4 months out, since we're focusing heavily on the SaaS side of things. Because once you have that, the kind of the full foundation of the platform, adding in e-commerce is not that difficult. It's just factoring in this cost of revenue versus COGS. You got you getting cost of goods sold. So we'll add in some of those functionalities. The basic accounting stuff will be ready for both because we already have that option. It's just more of the more KPIs and stuff that we want to add in for specifically e-commerce folks and do the integrations with Shopify.
Makes sense. And so I guess like for that activation, like what's kind of your plans there? Are you planning on like attending some sort of conference or going to events? Like how are you kind of going to like go and get the word out for e-commerce merchants?
Yeah, a lot of events. So I've been in the e-commerce space for the last few years. I mean, last year I hit 15 different e-commerce events. This year I've been taking a break. I only went to one e-commerce event at the beginning of this year, and it's been pretty much SaaS-based events so far the rest of the year. So next year, it's a matter of just kind of blending both. It helps that I've been in both spaces for a while, so I know folks in both spaces quite a bit. In fact, I've found e-commerce to be a tighter community, though, of folks. So once you get in, it's a lot easier to just grow faster on that side.
I agree. Yeah, I think with SaaS, it can be challenging because you have so many different vertical SaaS platforms and like it's hard for someone to resonate with someone building like, I don't know, a SaaS product that's, vertically integrated for plumbers versus like, B2B SaaS for, I don't know, what. It's just like, I think there's not as much in common sometimes.
Yeah, and in e-commerce, I found that like you're either going to an Amazon focused kind of event, you're going to a Shopify focused event, a D2C event. And that's kind of the two places. And the SaaS side, you can have a very health tech focused events. You can have fintech events. So there's so many different flavors of that you can have. And then just general SaaS events. So there's a lot more on that side. But so because of that, there's not a strong community versus, if you go to enough Amazon or D2C events, you start seeing the same people over and over and you start forging those relationships.
Percent. So if you could go back in time to before you started this business or even before you started this entrepreneurship journey, what is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew?
Before I started, one of the key things that's probably been the most helpful has been networks and forging those relationships. Funny enough, I was in New York for Tech Week, NYC Tech Week, and I had taken my nephew with me, who just graduated from Stony Brook. Getting into that, looking at the world through his eyes coming out of, university at this point in time, it's like you can have a degree, you can have a little bit of experience, but most of the people are walking into the world where it's zero networks and how much a network plays into where you're really going to be able to go, whether it's a job, whether it's your own business. It's having that network is so critical into scaling a business and how you can kind of just unlock new doors, new markets. It's just such a critical part that I think it's not spoken enough about out there.
That's awesome. That's good advice. If somebody watching this wanted to reach out to you or wanted to work with you, do you mind sharing your website or social media? I guess best ways that people can find you.
Me personally, it's easiest just to go to OzMerchant. Either website's OzMerchant.com, any handle is OzMerchant. For Futureproof, it's RunFutureproof.com, and pretty much all the handles are RunFutureproof everywhere as well.
Awesome. Well, Oz, thanks so much for your time today.
Appreciate it, Dan. Thanks so much.